ask a lot of questions. Like, people want to know that you're interested in them. If you've had a conversation with somebody, if you have not asked them at least 3 or 4 questions, and if they haven't asked you any questions, you're on a one-sided relationship.
This is the Pass the Pitch podcast with Anna Frazzetto. Each episode, we sit down with bold thinkers and industry trailblazers to uncover the strategies, stories, and sparks of inspiration that drive growth and transformation. Let's get started.
Well, hello. Today, I get to have a great podcast with Susan Donohoe, who is the Chief of Staff and Chief Program Officer for TechServe Alliance. And you have a tremendous history, Susan. I mean, I've known you for so many years, but what I love is all the work that you do, not only in the IT and engineering staffing industry, but also nonprofit associations. You're a producer of premier education networking conferences for IT and engineering across the board. So thrilled to have you today and can't wait to engage in some great conversation together.
Thank you, Anna. It's been an exciting couple of years working with you, and so I appreciate this opportunity to have additional conversations. We've been friends and colleagues for a long time, so it's a lot of fun.
Yes, and one of the things I have to say, Susan, I agree 100% is, I love all the work that you've done for, rising and lifting women in tech. And I hope through the course of the conversation that we get to talk about that. I think about the very first women luncheon that you had at TechServe many, many years ago. And it was this small room to now we actually have like standing room attendance, and it's become like the talk of the TechServe conference, I have to say. And honestly, it's kudos to you for being able to, pull that off and pushing forward, right? Because sometimes it's not easy to get that type of attention.
Yeah, I mean, from the very beginning, it was kind of a labor of love, but also a labor of necessity. We needed to have an opportunity to encourage more women participation in particular in STEM staffing. So I just love that we were able to grab all these leaders back then, and then the immense growth. And, I look at the room, we have 400 people in the room. It used to be probably 75 to 80% male. And now it's, we're getting close. We're getting a lot of, when we do our women's lunch, we're taking a big chunk of the population of that event into a private event. Although we do invite our male allies, we would encourage them to participate and listen in on the conversations. So it's an exciting thing to watch happen. And I'm excited for whatever is going to come next. And the conversations only get stronger.
Excellent. So let's jump in. I wanted to talk a little bit about, leadership and leadership lessons. And this is something that we can all, learn from. But what's the most unexpected leadership lesson that you've learned? And how has it shaped the way you guide your team or organization today?
So, leadership is an interesting conversation because some people seem to be born with that talent and, come out telling all their friends what to do and things of that nature. I was lucky. I grew up in a military family. And so my father and mother were amazing leaders in our community from the very beginning. So I watched them. And so I would say that, I was blessed in that department, that I always recognized that my father was a colonel in the Army, or retired colonel in the Army, and he would always be the last one to sit down at an event. He was the ranking officer in the room, but he would have his privates, his sergeants, his support staff always sit before he did. And he didn't have an assigned seat. He would just wait and watch. And I learned, and he said, the leading officer is the last one to sit in the room, the last one to eat. That's like a motto in the military. And I kind of always took that as kind of my guiding star. Is I watch my team, I look, and I make sure they're okay, and then I take care of myself. And so that's kind of been the way I've done it.
That I love that. Last person to sit, last person to eat. I think that's a great lesson. Um, I can also think of many situations where I would love to use that that lesson to have people kind of take away. Talking about adaptability in business, what's it's so hard, right? How to adapt in different situations. But what's one time you or your team had to pivot quickly, right? And what made that shift successful or not? Sometimes there's more value in the lesson where it didn't work. What's your advice for thriving in unpredictable times? And Susan, we were just talking about this at the conference, but also when we have any of our meetings and discussion. Tech, IT in particular, has really been beat up over the last 2 years. And everybody is looking at 2025 to kind of be, okay, it's gotta change. It's gotta get better. We can't go into a third year of IT struggling. So tell me from your perspective, what do you think?
So back to your original part of your question about pivoting, TechServe actually pivot. I mean, a lot of organizations had to pivot quick when the pandemic hit. So we just recently closed our permanent office in Alexandria. Mark Roberts, our CEO, just posted a really nice retrospective on that on LinkedIn. But when we did that, I mean, we pivoted fast. And we are a service organization. Yes, we have products and services that we sell, but our biggest touch is our people and our connection with our members. And we had to figure out a way to hold them together. So we pivoted really fast. We set up virtual roundtables, first addressing kind of the crisis at hand. How do you deal with, remote work? How do you deal with just even the PPP loans and things of those natures? We really were providing like a fire hose of information, but also doing it online and virtually. Well, the success of that kind of told us like we can do things fast and quickly and respond to what our members need when they need it and not put it into a 3-year plan and not. So there were some things that we learned that pretty quickly and we're very successful at it. I mean, I think the organization is stronger today than it was in 2019 before COVID. So I think the lesson that we learned from that was listen to your customer, listen really quickly, find out what their pain points are and address it. And that's where I think we were super successful. And why we were we started hiring our people where the talent was. So internally, we went from a small team in Alexandria to a much larger team where we have people in Michigan, we have people in New York, we have people in New Jersey, we have, so it's been in Florida. I mean, we're all over now, and I think we're in 8 states, but we have a great team, and we're very much involved with each other. We're on Zoom all the time, or Teams all the time, and things of that nature. So I think that was a great pivot lesson for us, like not panic, just get it done. And I think we were super successful. As far as the staffing industry, I mean, I think in IT and engineering, it has been a tough couple of years, and we are looking hopefully for that to pivot. We are starting to hear, I will say, in our roundtable groups that there is, sales are starting, people are needing the needs, the technology, a lot of big projects of big companies were put on back burner, trying to figure out what's going on. We're starting to see that change. I think we're predicting a 3% growth, not massive, but not terrible in the IT and engineering sector for this year. So, we'll keep you informed, stay watching. Mark Roberts does a state of the industry every 3 months, kind of gets the feel. We talk to the large firms, we look at data and see where it's going. And so I hate to say it, cautiously optimistic.
Okay, I agree, Susan. I have to tell you, at the start of the year, I feel like with all the clients that I've been talking to, there definitely is positive momentum in the right direction. So things, instead of staying on hold for a long period of time, now we're starting to see that there's more engagement, asking questions, fine tuning the proposed solution, and therefore hopefully there's going to be a closure at the end of that. I have to say that TechServe did a fabulous job. I've always been biased to TechServe, but did a fabulous job with pivoting during COVID and keeping the members informed. So there is a valuable lesson there. I think the roundtables are super successful. They're great. I participate on a couple of them, and they're always so informative. And there's that intimate connection because you get to talk to 15, 20 people that are kind of going through the same things that you're going through. Either it be like the executive women roundtable, or it be the sales roundtable, whatever the case is. I think they're always super, super informative. I look forward to Mark's updates always. And I would have to say, if anybody who's listening that is in the IT or engineering staffing space, you got to be a member of TechServe because you really kind of get to know, have the inside scoop as far as what's going on in the industry, and in a more proactive fashion versus reactionary. So I appreciate that.
I want to emphasize that proactive part, because that's where the differentiator comes. Is we're hearing it in real time. We're hearing what folks are doing out in the trenches, and so if you're curious or need to have that forecasting ability, being part of TechServe allows you to see what your peers are. The amazing thing about TechServe is they're all competitors in some way or another, but they're super willing to share and work forward. And that is super, it's unique.
Oh, yeah. I mean, there's definitely power in the collaboration as opposed to I'm just going to go at it alone. There's no value in that. And also, if you think about it, the ultimate goal is keeping the industry buyers informed as changes are happening in the tech space. So therefore, why not all participate together and gain that knowledge? Which kind of leads me, I think, to the next question, talking about, personal branding and authenticity. How do you balance staying authentic while building your personal or organizational brand? What's one thing you think people get wrong about this? I think one advantage is TechServe Alliance. I would like to believe everybody who's in IT knows who TechServe Alliance is, but how do you gain that?
Yeah, I mean, there's a challenge that I personally have always kind of struggled with, because I think TechServe is, I'm like, if you're in our space, or even if you sell in our space, you really should be a part of the organization, because we have access to so many contacts. And so it's a struggle, and I get frustrated, and I'm like, hey, you got to be a part of us. But, I think, one of the things that we try to do is be consistent. I really am not a transactional type of person. So I try to be authentic in my language, my relationships, the way I deal with people. The way we deal at TechServe is we really do see, if we do it for one member, we do it for all members. We're super consistent in that. And I think that when you start to not be consistent in the way you treat your customers or the way you work, it's out. And they're like, they're going to do it for you if you do X, Y for them. And that's really not who we are. And so I always try, and I tell our team that we have to be consistent. If we do it for one member, we're going to do it for all members. So is this the right decision to do this for one? Because now we're doing it, for the whole community. Or why aren't we doing it for this one? And why aren't we doing it for the entire industry, the community? And so those are the conversations that we have internally.
Right. And also, I think one thing that, TechServe really does great is that you could be $1 million staffing company, or you could be a $500 million staffing company, and you have the same seat at the table. You don't have to feel that, oh my God, I'm just $1 million. Like, what am I doing here? Like, my voice doesn't count. But there's space for everyone, and there's room for everyone.
Yeah, I have in the past, one of our very large firms was interacting with some of, like, at our event, and they were, in person A and person B didn't really know who each other were because they had never met before. And they're having this great conversation, and person B, is a $1 billion firm executive, and person, and it was just great to watch, and they both got a lot out of it. And when we talk to the very large firms, a lot of times they say, we love being around it because we get reminded of that entrepreneurial spirit. How do we, obviously, we have these huge, massive infrastructures we can't quickly flip like an entrepreneurial firm can do, but it reminds them of some of the things that they should be doing or could be doing and try to think of it differently. So they learn from both, both groups learn from each other. It's pretty cool to watch.
Right, right. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of value in the knowledge exchange. Let's talk a little bit about customer experience and relationships. We kind of talked a little bit about that in the previous two questions, but I would like to ask, like, what's your secret sauce for creating unforgettable customer experience? Can you share maybe a time when going above and beyond made all the difference?
So I think for me personally, and I try to encourage this with our whole team is ask a lot of questions. Like people want to know that you're interested in them, and companies want to know that you're interested in what they're doing as a firm and things of that nature. So I've always discovered that if you ask a lot of questions and you get people to tell you their story, they start to trust you because they're like, oh, they actually do care about me. They actually are interested in. I mean, if you've had a conversation with somebody and you have not asked them at least 3 or 4 questions, and if they haven't asked you any questions, you know, you're on a one-sided relationship. And so I've always encouraged, because people like to talk about themselves. I mean, it's super fun, and you get to tell a story and things of that nature. But to me, that's the differentiator maker in like customer service and relationships is, engage, actually be curious about that person. And you'll get so much out of it. And then they'll walk away feeling valued. They'll feel like they were heard. Those are all the things. I mean, sometimes I get too much information. I'm like, didn't mean to go there. But, but if it's, but then you're super close to that person. And I think that makes a difference. And I try to do, and that's why, I've worked in TechServe for so long, and why I feel I have so many great relationships in the industry is because I feel like I really know these people and they've gotten to know me too. So I think that's kind of the secret sauce. Consistency is the other thing. If people learn that you treat one different than the other, I think you get written off. So you have to be super consistent in the way you treat people. Above and beyond experience actually had nothing to do with it. It's not even a TechServe, but it's kind of something that stuck with me. When my daughter was young, she had some illnesses, and we were at Disney World of all places. And I know that's kind of a cliche in the customer service experience, but this has really stuck with me. We went to a restaurant, and they asked, do you have any food issues or things like that? And I said, yeah, actually my daughter does. She's can't have dairy, can't have soy, can't have gluten, and this was a farm to table restaurant. The chef comes out, kneels down to my daughter, eye to eye to my daughter, and asks her what her favorite foods are. She was 11 or something at the time. My daughter actually has expensive taste. And she's like, I like lobster. I like, like all this kind of stuff. He came out with this special meal. Oh, and then he did look to me and says, this is what's in it, confirm that nothing was, against her. Comes out with the most special meal for my kid. And she was so excited. And so none of us got it. She got this special little meal that had lobster in it. And it was amazing. And I always took that away because the 2 lessons was they asked, they cared. So they followed through on the question that they asked for. And then the relationship that the chef took with my daughter, not with me. He was with the person he was needing to solve the problem for. And I was like, okay, that's what you got to do. You don't go over their heads, you go to them. And then you make sure that it's okay because you didn't want to, cause any health issues with my kid. But it really stuck with me. And I've always I tell this story a lot because it really meant something to me personally for my family, but then also kind of how I try to approach, customer service, life lessons going forward.
Right. Oh, I love that story because it also is, I'm sure she probably felt her daughter that a lot of times you're not included in, like the family meals, and because she can't eat certain things. But now it became, talk about an inclusive experience. It's like a one-on-one relationship with the chef. How wonderful is that? And then feeling special, because you got that treatment. Absolutely. Making, bringing it to clients, making a client feel special. You said a couple of things that I want to kind of hone in on. The consistency, you've said that a couple of times, and I couldn't agree more. Like one of the lessons that I often share when I'm working with salespeople is the fact of, consistency in your message, in how you're positioning your services, your product offering, but the listening part, right? You really, you hit that home, because that's so key. And I think a lot of times, especially in sales, kind of bringing it from a sales perspective, listening can be hard, because I know I've seen salespeople, and some brilliant salespeople, where they're already thinking about the next thing that they want to talk about, because it's like, oh, I have an active, client or potential client. I'm going to tell them about this, this, and this, but then they're missing the mark, because they're not listening to what the client really needs. And that active listening skill is often a really difficult skill to have. And you also talk about being curious. That makes you ask the questions, right? It should be about having the client really uncover what they are looking for, what's their ideal solution. So excellent points. I love all of those, Susan. But that story, I will definitely remember that story. That was a great story. I'm also a huge Disney fan. So to me, that's like, oh my God, that's perfect. All right, so Susan, let's have a little bit of fun. Not to put you on the spot and surprise you a little bit here, but I'm going to do some rapid fire questions and some fun questions that kind of say whatever comes to your mind at the time. What's one small habit or routine that keeps you grounded during a chaotic work week?
Coffee in the morning. It's the first thing I do.
Caffeine.
Sit for 10 minutes, drink the coffee, flip through. I'll read. I read a lot of newspapers, so it's kind of my kickoff, and look at CNBC and read my coffee.
That sounds great. Okay, so if you could teleport to one place for a quick brainstorming session, where would it be?
Well, I have a photo of Paris in my office, so a cafe in Paris would be ideal. In September, when the weather's decent.
I might teleport with you. That sounds like
we'll have a great conversation.
Exactly. Okay, so if you had to name your personal business anthem, what would it be?
It's kind of funny. I say it a lot of times, and I don't mean to belittle anything, but I'm like, we're not solving world peace.
Yeah.
So when we're in like a state of crisis at work or things of that nature, and I don't want to belittle every challenge, because every challenge is important, especially to the team member who's dealing with it. But I always try to calm things down and say, we're not solving world peace. Let's stay calm. We are going to get through this. And that's kind of, the team makes fun of me that I don't get really baffled by much. And so I'm like, I'm not going to solve it by freaking out. So let's just stay calm.
That's perfect. That's great. Yeah, stay calm. You're right. It's not, it's not brain surgery, right? Like
it's like brain surgery, world peace. I mean,
right.
but I also don't want to belittle the challenges that people are having, because at the moment it might feel like the biggest crisis on the planet. But at the same time, I always try to calm everyone down and be like, we'll get through it. We'll figure it out.
That's great. Okay, so what's the quirkiest hack you swear by?
The one thing I discovered recently, one thing I'm trying to do is I got a new iPhone, and I'm trying to learn all the productivity activities that this new iPhone can do for me. But one of the things that I started doing recently is going in and unsubscribing. You know how in your phone you can see the unsubscribe for all these. And so what a big goal of mine is to clean out my inbox. I don't subscribe to anything then unless I really know I'm going to look at it, because I have way too much stuff coming in. So the unsubscribe button on your phone, if you're in like a passenger in a car and you have time to kill, I just sit there and I unsubscribe.
Oh, that's great.
Is it right on your iPhone when you look in the inbox? It's the top line. I actually discovered it and I called our marketing team and I'm like, this is really how people can get in touch with us. But if you want to clean out your inbox, it's an easy fix.
That is definitely something that I need to do. And it's always on my list of things to tackle, but then it becomes easier to just delete the message. But you're right. I should just, unsubscribe. So I will definitely pay attention to that. Okay. So last fun question is, describe your leadership style in 3 emojis and explain them.
Okay. So I'm a big fan of the thumbs up, regardless of if I'm like, I feel that if somebody sends me a Teams message, I need to acknowledge that I got it. That doesn't mean I'm necessarily going to solve the problem, answer the question in that moment. But if I give them a thumbs up, it means that they know I saw. If I don't give a thumbs up, I feel like, and I feel this way when people don't do it to me. So like, did they see it? Do they have an answer? What are they, so that's one. I do the upside down smiley face one a lot. And I'm not even sure I use it correctly because I don't know exactly what it's supposed to mean, but I use it in like this was a goofy thing, or like, I hope maybe we did it right, or we'll see. It's kind of my we'll see, and like, kind of in a lighthearted way. Like I'm not exactly confident in it, but or that was a goofy experience or something like that. So I do that one a lot when like the team is just being fun. And then I do, fireworks. If I think something's cool, I do a firework.
That is fantastic. I love that. It's interesting. I started asking this question about the emojis, and it's been great to see what people say as far as how they relate to different emojis. But I like the fireworks one. That's a good one. I probably should use that one more in my communication. You also bring up a good point in acknowledging the receipt of a message. And you're right. A lot of times I find if I send something out and then you're like, well, did they get it? They haven't responded. It's like, do I need to ping them again? Do I need to? Yeah. So it is kind of interesting. Well, listen, Susan, thank you so much for being on the podcast today. Really look forward to continuing our conversations and to have you again soon.
Yes. And thank you for having me, and good luck with your new organization and AFM Strategic Partners. Excited for you and look forward to working with you.
Thanks for listening to the Pass the Pitch podcast with Anna Frazzetto. Don't forget to subscribe and share. In our next episode, we talk to Christine Sandman-Stone about leadership, talent development, and the trade-offs of rising to the top. See you then.